Hello, my name is Matthew Eshed, and I'm the biochar researcher at Coldharbour. I'm doing it as my master's thesis project for the Master of Environmental Management program at Western Colorado University. And for my project, which seeks to characterize biochar for use in a variety of settings, I decided when proposing the project that I was going to um, communicate the information not only through a dense multi-page document, but also through creative and artistic means. And so the concept of a zine emerged as a way to participate in independent publishing and creativity and processing findings through creative means, not just through scientific means. So we're looking to the objective is to lower the barrier to participation as well as to understanding. So lower the barriers to entry through creativity. And we're also seeing this, the Coldharbour Institute is also seeing this as a pilot of sorts for how the regenerative science and projects that are happening at the Institute can be communicated in a way that's perhaps more resonant than traditional ways. So this presentation is also kind of meant to be a bit of a pilot of just storytelling. So perhaps we might be used to presentations having slides and words, and while this presentation does indeed have slides, it's almost entirely pictures, and we'll be told the presentation will be given in a storytelling kind of format. So, right, and so by viewing this presentation, you can either opt to participate. You can reach out to the Institute and say that you want to participate and produce a page or produce something. Or you can just use this as a way to learn about the Biochar project, as this presentation will tell stories that represent kind of events that have happened along the way for the project. So again, this is a presentation where you can, as the audience, you can just receive the information, or you can be inspired by it. And whether your contribution is a sketch or a doodle that you make right now, or something where you're inspired and you get your kind of creative juices starting to flow, and then you can get back to me with your contribution. So in terms of time frame, this needs to be totally done and printed by the first week of May. So that means that submissions really need to be coming in at the beginning of April, which means that we have about the month of March to make stuff, so that I can do the layout throughout the month of April and figure out printing and get the budget and all of that kind of stuff. So again, if you want to contribute something, reach out to me. It's my first name dot my last name at western.edu, and you can let me know that you're interested in submitting a page or two, and each page can kind of mimic how I've structured the stories in this presentation. So there's kind of one grouping of similar aspects that's presented in a story. So you don't need to at all mimic or copy anything that I'm presenting here, but this is kind of intended to be a bit of a jump off for your pages or for the next version. So even for me and the pages that I'm going to produce, they will also be kind of inspired by what's here, but not necessarily exact. So, so there you have it. I guess I'll get started now. Okay, so here's the first story. This is the story of people. The story at the Western School of the Environment and Sustainability that has to do with locally produced soil amendments and how they work on rangelands kind of started with this former student Alexa Cooper and her advisor Jenny DeMarco, and they were looking at how compost might have an effect on grass, on rangelands. And the compost that they used came from the Gunnison wastewater treatment plant that produces Class A biosolids called Gunny Gold. And that was spread onto experimental plots on 4 ranches in the Gunnison Valley. And relatively positive results were seen, at least in terms of the change in growth of forage over the course of 1 season, which in Gunnison our growing seasons are quite short. So something promising there. And they share a context that there's an interest in this among the ranching community, and that'll actually be talked about in a later story. And then you can see on the top right, here's our project now. So we're continuing this legacy now with Ricardo Vasquez Perales and my project partner Jad Freija, and Nate Gore also worked on biochar, and he's a professor at Western now. I'm realizing that I didn't really explain what biochar is. So it's biomass plus charcoal. So it's charcoal that can be made from any kind of biomass, and the charcoal is not intended to be used as fuel, but rather as a soil amendment or as a filter medium. Think activated carbon. So biochar is something that we can make an activated carbon-like material, very adsorptive material. That's adsorption, adsorption, different from absorption. That we can make using waste materials. So that's what makes it exciting, that perhaps it can be used to develop soils and make them more drought resistant or resilient, and we're using waste material as the feedstock. So that's pretty exciting. So this story is a story of people and legacy and the school here. Next story. This is the genesis of this biochar project. Again, there's kind of a lot of people and organizations, and here the story is international digital regenerative collaboration, bringing it down to the local scale. I had been working with these 2 guys pictured here, who are this image says harnessing the power of digital, and what that means is they're harnessing software and blockchain to provide an auditable mechanism to ensure that if we're using a soil amendment or we're doing something that we think will improve the soil, that there's a way to monitor that through digital systems, which is how the financial industry works and how business transactions take place. And they're actually based in Cape Town, South Africa. Or Stellenbosch to be particular, and I met them through this online community called the Global Regeneration Collaborative, and that's how I even was thinking about biochar at all. And so then when I came here to Western and I saw MJ's here, and I saw that MJ's directing Coldharbour Institute, and that the Coldharbour Institute is the Colorado hub for the Savory Institute, which I had already been familiar with, I was like, oh wow, this is an opportunity for me to do some hands-on local work to kind of augment this online digital kind of work that I was doing with biochar, which was good and great, but kind of unfulfilling. And then Utah State University is involved because they have been working on biochar using these big box kilns. You can see in the photo on the bottom left, in a biomass lab there that's been going for about 20 years. So there's a professor there, Darren McAvoy, and he's been super helpful and is very passionate about these kind of kilns to manage forest residue, really. So this is kind of the international, through the internet, finding a local source, making connections in the region, that's this part of the story. Part two. Part three, this is a relatively simple and straightforward story, but here's the landfill, the Gunnison County landfill. It is pretty much next door to the Coldharbour Ranch, so it's the landfill next door, and they accept wood waste there, as you can see in these photos. At the time that I visited in April, they had a big wood chipper there, and the chips, they could then mix the chips into the landfill as one of their layers there. And otherwise, they have these big piles that can't be chipped. Maybe they have nails in them. Maybe they have rocks in the roots. Maybe there are root balls that can't be chipped. And so they sit and they sit. And so we see it. And so this is a story of trees being brought by truck from the forest, or any kind of woody debris being brought by truck, diesel most likely, to sit and sit and sit as waste. Story number 4, drought and ranching. So because this is the Coldharbour Institute, we are looking at an audience of ranching. And so around here, we have some local context, which is in 2018, there was a big drought period, and the irrigation was shut off 2 weeks early. And so that caused an awareness among the ranching community that building and developing the soil in a way that it can hold on to more moisture, and that the forage can continue to be abundant even in periods of low water, that's something that they would be interested in doing. So here's some cows. Here's some Canadian thistle. And then on the bottom left is a drone image of the area at Coldharbour that I'm looking at doing my research study. And it's this kind of vertical, kind of lighter area that you can see there approximately in the middle, that we see that as an interesting place to see how biochar might affect soil and water holding capacity and other physical and chemical and biological characteristics of soil. So the cows are going to walk here. This is cattle and the land here they go together. Although at the Coldharbour Ranch, the cattle are only going to graze here for about a week or two, only once a year, in a process called high intensity, low frequency grazing. Not how it's done at every ranch, but it's how it's done here. But everybody is thinking about the water and the drought, and there might be the larger context of the upper Colorado Basin and the lower basin, and water cuts and things like this are sort of the broader context. So this is kind of a story of broad context, local context, livelihood, action, something that happened in the past in 2018 affecting us now, and all of that kind of wrapped up together. So that's story number 4. Speaking of words, we do have words in this project. This story is called A Literature Review and 2 Studies. So there's a complete literature review here. There's this project proposal that you can see on the right. There's the kind of table of contents there. We're going super deep. We're going into the molecular structure of the biochar, and then you can see the 2 study designs. One is there kind of on the middle top. That is a row crop test plot, and then the other design is on the bottom right, and that's the design of the test plots that we're doing at the ranch in that drone image we saw in the last story. So it's something that exists in a schematic and model kind of way, as you can see in that image there of the carbon rings. And then it also exists in a way that's really tangible, and in between you can sketch your tangibility on paper, and that's what we do with these designs. But then at the end of the day, you need shovels, you need soil, you need the right weather, you need the right people, you need to remember to bring a bottle of water, things like that. It gets very tangible. So this is kind of translating review information into shoveling and doing science. Story number 6, Gunnison Producers Guild. So if you're here in Gunnison and you're interested in regenerative agriculture, you probably have heard of this group. The photos here, you see Gunnison Gardens. There's a time earlier in the year in 2022 when a whole group of people came to make some biochar together. On the top right is an image from the Organics Guild on campus at Chipeta Gardens, also thinking about spreading biochar. And here's our Professor Ricardo teaching us about soil and soil development and why putting biochar in the soil might be interesting. On the bottom right is a garden through the community that used biochar that we produced in their beds. And in the middle are a bunch of buckets of freshly brewed compost tea. Really delicious stuff to use in one of our experimental plots. And so this is a story of people and communities and farms, especially those in Gunnison, where the season's short, the winter's cold, the air is dry, and so we're loving the soil, we're stewarding the soil, and we're trying to build local food security and livelihoods. And so this is a very beautiful and kind of densely packed with meaning kind of story. Story number 7, attempting pyrolysis. So pyrolysis is the process through which biochar is made. It's oxygen limited thermal decomposition. I don't say combustion because it's not really combustion, as you can see there on the left in this artistic biochar kiln or fire pit, where the fire is used to create the top layer. So you're creating this vessel where that fire pit, ornamental, beautiful fire pit, is enclosed on the sides and on the bottom, but on the top it's open. And so we use the flame to create kind of a cap to the top, and it's called a flame cap kiln. And so it's an attempt because, as you can see there in the middle, a bunch of the wood that we used didn't actually, barely even burned. You can see us quenching it on the right, making clouds there with Joe Bob. And then looking toward the future on the bottom, we made connection with some people in the Front Range who have these kilns. There's the kind of dumpster, or rather container looking one on the right there, big rectangle, and then you can kind of see it's a bit cut off in the image, but there's a lower down to the ground flame cap kiln there that are designed for kind of forest thinning usage. If you have a big pile of sticks and branches and trees, these are designed to put them in and to make your biochar in there. So we're actually making the biochar. We're using these methods. We're saying, can we do it? So from another side of digging the biochar into the soil, this is how do we make it? Where does it come from? Can we make it? Can other people make it? So this is really a story of hands-on. It's a story of heat. It's a story of art and community and kind of taking matters into our own hands, not relying on industry to give us what we need, but making the stuff we need ourselves. And it takes an attempt, just as this is an attempt to make a zine. Story number 8, forest regeneration. So in this picture is a whole stand of trees up in the Powderhorn that are dead from beetle kill. And on the right here is Professor Jonathan Koop, and one of the slides that he gave to our Master of Environmental Management cohort telling us that we're in the hottest place. So we have large stands of trees in the forests that are dead. We have increased warming, so drier soils, warmer winters, allowing the beetles, bark beetles, to proliferate more because the temperatures aren't as low for as long. And so there's just a lot going on here. And so what role does charcoal play in the forest ecosystem, whether it's the charcoal that's left after a fire or charcoal that we bring and, with our energy inputs, the trucks that we have to bring into the forest to bring those big dumpsters in. We need an excavator, we have to expend energy to make the charcoal in the forest. So there's kind of a whole bundle of questions there that can be in the realm of fantasy, especially in the context of the zine, or they can be very much in the realm of the real. This work is being done where slash piles, instead of being just fully combusted, if the resources are available, this kiln can be brought in, and by making biochar through pyrolysis instead of full combustion, the particulate emissions is lessened, the CO2 and methane emissions are lessened, although not entirely eliminated, but they are less when producing biochar than when full combustion. So kind of interesting, kind of futuristic, and we're responding to an emergency in whatever way that we can, and with an eye on regeneration. And this is the last story, Jenison's sustainability strategy. So there in the middle is an image of the head of sustainability for this county of Gunnison, John Cattles. And when I spoke with him, he said that based on the emissions inventory, which you can see here, that energy is much more interesting for the sustainability plan than really anything with waste or landfill. So there's not much of an interest in improving landfill diversions at the moment. In addition, when I asked about the possibility to capture gas from a more enclosed biochar reactor, you can capture the gas and then you can use that for heating. You can burn it for heating. To that, he said he's not interested in that either because of the geothermal resources that are available here. And if we are going to create kind of a new district heating or district energy system, it's going to be one that is electric and not based on combustion of gas. So those are very interesting. In addition, there is the tree dump, and they provide the wood chips that go into the gunny gold, that go to the wastewater plant and get mixed with their solids, with their biosolids, to make the gunny gold. So there actually is already a bit of a local amendment materials economy already happening here in Gunnison. So kind of figuring out if there's a place for pyrolysis of biomass and use of the end product is something that actually is possible in the county, it seems. So it's possible. Where is it possible? That's the story that we can tell here with this in the zine and this part of the story. So that's it. There you have it. Here's our lovely Palisades. A beautiful summer day, or looks like, or fall day. I guess I see some snow, so maybe it's the spring. And I hope that this presentation has been enjoyable. Again, you can reach me through my email. I'll go back to the beginning, or actually I can't go back to the beginning here. Yeah, Matthew Eshed at western.edu, or you can contact the Coldharbour Institute. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation on the biochar project through story, with an eye on inviting people to participate in the zine. And again, the submissions, we have the month of March 2023 to put together our submissions, and then April is formatting and laying out and printing, and then it needs to be done by the beginning of May. So let's have fun and to the future. All right, thank you.